The corridor pulsed with red emergency light, each flicker like the heartbeat of a dying ship. The air was thick with metallic dust, each breath scraping Rafe Voss's throat like razors. A woman's voice crackled over the intercom, barely audible over the sirens. "It's happening again." Rafe's gloved hands shook as he reached up, fingers hooking under the straps of his rebreather mask. He didn't want to do it, didn't want them to see. But hiding was over. The sound of tearing Velcro seemed deafening in the suffocating silence that followed. When the mask came away, the skin beneath wasn't his own. Black-veined and ashen, it glistened under the harsh light. Golden eyes, too bright and too alien, locked with the corridor's security lens. His breath caught, not from fear, but from the familiar pull in his blood. They weren't coming for Earth. They were coming for him. The fleet was already here, patient and silent, waiting for him to remember who he truly was. And for the first time in years, the thing inside him stirred. Rafe slammed the bulkhead shut with a force that rattled the hinges, sealing himself away from the others. The clang echoed like a death knell through the ship's skeleton. His lungs burned, not from exertion, but from the acidic tang of scorched metal hanging in the air. Memories crashed in, the sterile briefing room, the cold voice telling him that his DNA was a weapon, the blueprint for an entire alien race. They hadn't been defending Earth from invasion. They'd been guarding him. Every war fought, every city destroyed, had been part of a game to keep him contained. The red light on the panel beside him blinked steadily, indifferent to the storm in his chest. He pressed his forehead against the cold steel door, feeling the vibration of movement on the other side. They weren't breaking in, they were letting him remember. Somewhere deep in the ship's lower decks, the hull gave a slow, resonant groan, not the random shudder of machinery, but the deliberate sound of something alive pressing against it. The vibration seeped into Rafe's bones, resonating in a place he wished didn't exist. Steam hissed through fractured vents overhead, curling in the air like searching tendrils. His heartbeat matched the low, rumbling thump of movement below. He knew the sound. It was the breath of something patient, something that had waited far too long to be denied. The intercom hissed again, the woman's voice now sharper, cutting through the hum of the ship. "Rafe, they know you're awake." He froze, breath caught halfway. She didn't mean the aliens, she meant it. The part of him that had never truly slept, that had been clawing at the edges of his mind for years, waiting for this exact moment. Raf's hand hovered near his sidearm, the weight of it dragging against his hip like an anchor. He didn't see it as a weapon anymore, but as a decision. One pull of the trigger could end the human side of him forever, or let the alien part take control. The alarms faded into a dull rhythmic pulse, like the countdown to a choice he could never undo. The ship's gravity felt heavier as Rafe moved deeper into the restricted sector. Every step seemed to resist him, as though the corridors themselves wanted to hold him back. The lights here were dimmer, tinged with a sickly green hue from aging power conduits. His boots crunched over shattered glass from an overhead display that had burst under the strain. Somewhere behind him, metal scraped against metal in a slow, deliberate drag. He didn't turn. Predators wanted you to turn. The air tasted of ozone, sharp and bitter, and his alien instincts whispered in a language he'd never learned but always known. Each breath made his pulse louder in his ears. They weren't hunting the crew. They were hunting him, and the closer he got to the ship's core, the more certain he was that they weren't here to kill him. They were here to wake him. Rafe stopped at a sealed blast door marked with faded warning glyphs he didn't recognize, yet part of him understood perfectly. The symbols pulsed faintly, as if sensing him. His fingers hovered over the panel, and for a moment, the ship's noise dimmed into silence. A memory crashed in uninvited, standing in a chamber bathed in pale light, voices speaking his name in harmony, promising him eternity. His human mind recoiled, but something older inside him leaned forward, eager. The blast door groaned, metal shifting like it was breathing. He stepped back, pulse spiking, but he couldn't tell if it was fear or anticipation driving him. A low vibration spread through the deck, traveling up Rafe's boots and into his bones. The overhead lights flickered, cycling between red and green, until they settled into an unnatural darkness. Somewhere beyond the blast door, a deep, resonant tone rang out, not mechanical, not human. His breath misted in the sudden chill, and his instinct screamed that whatever was behind that door wasn't trapped. It was waiting. The voice over the intercom came again, softer this time, almost pleading. "Don't open it, Rafe, please." But the part of him that was alien was already moving forward, one step at a time. A sharp metallic screech tore through the air, and the blast door's center split just enough for a sliver of blinding white light to spill through. It cut across Rafe's face, casting half of it in stark illumination, while the other half remained in shadow. His golden eyes flared briefly, and the voice in his mind, not the intercom, whispered, "We remember you." His knees almost buckled under the weight of that recognition. Somewhere far behind, alarms began wailing again, but they sounded distant, like echoes in a dream. The light widened, spilling over him, and for a heartbeat he saw what was inside. Vast machinery woven with living tissue, pulsating gently, as if breathing. Dark figures moved within the glow, tall and inhuman, yet familiar. One turned its head toward him, and the shape of its face matched his own alien reflection. His breath caught. He knew without being told that this was not just the enemy's command chamber. This was the origin. And every step closer brought him nearer to becoming what he feared most, himself. The chamber's light seemed alive, pulsing in rhythm with Rafe's heartbeat. Each step forward was like wading into a tide of memory that wasn't his, yet it carried his scent, his voice, his violence. The alien figures shifted in unison, their movements unnervingly fluid, like shadows deciding to stand upright. Rafe's boots sank slightly into the floor, which was warm and faintly yielding, more like flesh than metal. His human mind recoiled, but the part of him that was alien recognized it as home. One figure stepped closer, its towering silhouette cutting into the light. Rafe's golden eyes met its own, and for an instant, they shared the same thought, though no words passed between them. The intercom's static hiss bled faintly into the background, but he barely heard it. The voice in his head was louder, insistent, claiming him. The alien's movements were slow but deliberate, its elongated fingers curling toward him in a beckoning gesture. Rafe's hand hovered near his weapon, but he didn't draw it, not yet. The warmth of the floor rose into his legs, seeping into his muscles like a sedative. For a second, he imagined stepping forward, imagined what it would feel like to surrender to the thing in his blood. The thought scared him more than any battle he'd fought. Behind him, the blast door was no longer open. He didn't remember it closing. The trap wasn't physical, it was in his mind, the walls folding in, reshaping him to fit something else. A sudden ripple passed through the chamber, as if it had taken a breath. Lights along the walls shifted from white to a deep oceanic blue, and the alien figures began moving in a slow, circling formation. Rafe felt his pulse sensing with their steps, his breathing falling into their rhythm. He realized, with a lurch of dread, that they were teaching him, aligning his body to theirs. He staggered back, breaking the pattern, and their heads all turned toward him at once. In that shared gaze, there was no malice, only recognition. But recognition could be worse than hate. From the shadows beyond the light, a different voice spoke, low, rough, undeniably human. "You were never meant to survive this long." Rafe turned sharply, finding a man in black combat armor, leaning casually against the chamber wall, helmet under his arm. His eyes were sharp, clinical, and entirely unafraid of the aliens around them. "You're the key, Voss, and keys don't choose what they open." The aliens didn't move to stop him, didn't acknowledge him at all, as if he belonged there as much as they did. That was somehow worse. The man stepped forward, closing the space between them with deliberate slowness. "You think you've been fighting them," he said. "You've been fighting yourself." The words hit like a physical blow, and Rafe's knees almost gave way. Behind him, the alien figures stood perfectly still, their golden eyes mirroring his own. The truth wasn't just sinking in, it was wrapping around him, locking into place like armor. He didn't know whether to fight it or wear it. The man in black armor took another slow step forward, boots clicking against the living floor with a sound that didn't belong in this place. "You've been a soldier in someone else's war, Rafe," he said, voice low and deliberate. "Every order you followed was just another way to keep you from yourself." The aliens behind Rafe did not move, did not blink, their tall frames silhouetted against the chamber's pulsing light. His grip tightened on his sidearm, but it wasn't fear that kept him from raising it. It was the deep, gnawing suspicion that the man was right. "Why tell me now?" Rafe asked, his voice rasping, the words scraping out of him like rusted metal. The man's mouth curled into something between a smirk and a grimace. "Because the fleet's not here to destroy Earth. It's here to collect its property." The word property twisted in Rafe's head like a blade. He wasn't sure if the worst part was believing it, or wanting to. Rafe's mind spun through years of missions, every classified operation, every battle, every comrade lost. How many of them had died, thinking they were protecting humanity, when in truth they were guarding a single hybrid asset. His chest tightened, the alien part of him humming with restless energy, as if eager to be unshackled. The man stepped closer, voice almost a whisper now. "They'll offer you a place among them. They'll promise power, clarity, belonging. And when you say yes," he let the pause hang, heavy and deliberate, "you'll never want to be human again." Rafe's stomach turned. It wasn't the threat of losing himself that scared him. It was the terrifying pull of wanting to say yes. The chamber's light dimmed to a deep liquid blue, and the aliens stepped back in perfect unison, as if granting the humans space for their exchange. The man dropped his helmet to the floor with a dull thud. "You're standing at the edge of what you are, Voss," he said. "One choice, and the line disappears." Rafe's throat was dry, his mind a battlefield between loyalty and something far older than it. The memory of the intercom voice, the woman's voice, cut through his thoughts. "Don't open it, Rafe. Please." He realized with a sudden sharp clarity that she hadn't been talking about the blast door. She'd been talking about him. Something shifted in Rafe's stance. Not consciously, but the man in armor saw it, and smiled like he'd been waiting. "There it is," he murmured. "The part of you that knows this was never a choice." The aliens began to hum, low and resonant, their voices vibrating through the floor and into Rafe's bones. His vision blurred, edges softening, the chamber around him bending subtly as if gravity itself leaned toward him. The man's voice was steady, almost gentle. "You can fight it, but you won't win." Rafe's fingers flexed near his weapon, unsure whether to draw it against the man, the aliens, or himself. The chamber's hum deepened, and the floor beneath Rafe pulsed once like the heartbeat of something vast. The alien stepped forward again, but not toward him. They moved to flank him, forming a perfect arc. The man in armor took a single step back, eyes never leaving Rafe's. "This is the part," he said, "where you stop being one of them." Rafe's breath came shallow, the alien side of him thrumming like a living engine, ready to be unleashed. And in that moment he knew the truth. Whatever choice he made now, there was no going back. The hum of the chamber became a roar in Rafe's head, drowning out even his own thoughts. The aliens stood motionless beside him, yet he could feel them inside his mind, threading through memories like they were reading a history book written in his bones. Images flashed, battles he had fought, people he had killed, faces of strangers whose fear felt inexplicably familiar. They weren't showing him the future. They were showing him the past, their past, his past. His body trembled, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of belonging. The man in armor's voice cut through the psychic haze. "Now you see why they've never tried to kill you." Rafe's eyes locked on his, golden light bleeding brighter into the whites. For the first time, the alien side didn't feel like a curse. It felt like coming home. And that terrified him most of all. A ripple passed through the chamber floor, and Rafe felt it in his veins. The alien's hum shifted in pitch, forming something like words, not in sound, but in thought. "You were not made. You were returned." His knees nearly buckled as the truth crystallized. He wasn't human-born, altered by alien science. He was alien-born, shaped into a human soldier. Every memory of his childhood, every face he had loved, every moment of fear or pride, manufactured to keep him loyal to the wrong side. The man in armor didn't flinch at the revelation. He only watched, patient, as if he had known all along. "This is the moment, Voss," he said. "You either keep living their lie, or you take back what you are." Rafe's breath came in ragged bursts, every inhale tasting of metal and ozone. He thought of the woman's voice on the intercom, her urgency, her plea, and realized she wasn't trying to save him from the aliens. She had been trying to save him from the truth, because once you knew what you were, you could never unknow it. The aliens stepped closer, their formation tightening around him, heat radiating from their bodies in soft, rhythmic pulses. The floor's heartbeat synced with his own, and for a heartbeat, he didn't know whose pulse was whose. The man in armor tilted his head slightly. "They won't force you, Voss. They don't have to." That was the trap. The chamber's light began to strobe slowly, every flash illuminating the faint transformation already starting in Rafe's skin, the subtle metallic sheen, the deeper definition in his alien veins. His breathing slowed, chest rising and falling with deliberate calm, as though something ancient had taken over. "They'll make you whole," the man in armor said, "but they'll take everything you think you are." Rafe's hand dropped from his weapon. The idea of fighting them now felt absurd, like trying to fight the ocean with a knife. His gaze swept over the alien faces, and to his horror, he found them beautiful. The man in armor took one last step forward, until they were almost nose to nose. "They're not here to conquer us, Voss. They're here to wake you up." His words fell into the quiet, like a verdict. Rafe felt the alien voices swell, not in volume, but in certainty. They weren't asking for him to join them. They were reminding him that he already had. Somewhere deep inside a lock turned, and the door it opened wasn't to the chamber, it was to himself. And as the golden light in his eyes flared, he knew there was no going back. The chamber tightened around Rafe like a living lung, walls contracting with each deep pulse of light. His heart was no longer his own. It beat in perfect sync with the alien hum vibrating through his bones. The man in armor stood back now, watching like a priest at a sacred rite. Rafe's golden eyes flared brighter, every flicker revealing more of the black-veined pattern spreading under his skin. His breathing slowed, his mind pulling apart into two distinct voices. One human, trembling, clinging to loyalty and loss. The other alien, steady, patient, waiting for him to simply let go. "Choose," the man said, his voice carrying over the resonant hum, "before they do it for you." The weight of the decision pressed so hard on Rafe's chest that he thought he might break before he could move. The aliens stepped in closer, forming a perfect half-circle around him, their towering bodies casting elongated shadows across the living floor. Heat radiated from them, not oppressive, but enveloping, like stepping into a climate that was built for him alone. The human voice in his mind whispered the names of the dead, of the ones he had sworn to protect. The alien voice answered with silence, only the steady rhythm of a truth too vast for language. His fingers twitched toward his weapon, then curled into a fist. He could kill them maybe, but killing them would mean killing himself. The man in armor stepped forward, voice low and sharp. "If you go with them, you end the war. If you stay here, you keep fighting until there's nothing left of you to fight with." Rafe's chest heaved, torn between two kinds of destruction. He thought of the woman's voice, soft but desperate. And for a fleeting second, it outweighed the alien call. But then one of the aliens reached out, its palm hovering just inches from his face, and the sensation that washed over him wasn't fear. It was recognition, as intimate as looking into a mirror and seeing himself for the first time. The chamber's hum intensified, rattling the air, making every breath feel electric. The floor beneath Rafe seemed to draw him downward, as though gravity itself had been rewritten to claim him. His vision sharpened unnaturally. He could see the heartbeat in the alien's neck, the faint chemical sheen on the man's armor, even the microscopic pores in the walls around them. "You're already theirs," the man said. "The rest is just ceremony." Rafe's lips parted, not for words, but for the gasp of surrender he felt building in his chest. Rafe's hands dropped to his sides, open and still. The alien stepped closer until its palm pressed lightly against his chest, over his heart. A wave of heat and light surged through him, and his knees nearly buckled. His human side screamed, but it was a fading echo now, drowned beneath the flood of alien certainty. The man in armor didn't smile, didn't speak, he just nodded, as though a long, inevitable equation had finally resolved. In that moment Rafe understood. The war would end, but not because the aliens had won. It would end because he had stopped being human. The chamber's hum receded to a deep, steady vibration, like the slow heartbeat of something impossibly vast beneath their feet. Rafe stood in the wake of it, chest rising and falling in measured breaths that were no longer entirely his own. The alien's palm was gone from his chest, yet its heat still burned in his veins, not fading with distance, but radiating outward as if it had lit a fire that could never be extinguished. The man in armor said nothing, simply turned and began walking toward the blast door. It slid open at his approach without a sound, not as an act of mechanics but of acknowledgement. Rafe followed, each step feeling lighter in body yet heavier in spirit. Behind him, the alien figures remained in place, still as statues, but their golden eyes tracked him, silent guardians of a truth he could no longer run from. As they passed through the threshold, the corridor ahead stretched in cold blue light, and for the first time since the battle began, the alarms were silent. There was no sound now but the faint living murmur of the ship, and the second heartbeat inside him that would not let go. The corridor stretched ahead, a steel artery carrying them away from the heart of what Rafe had just accepted. He caught sight of his reflection in a fractured wall panel, the jagged metal splitting his face into two halves. One half was human, worn and scarred, sweat beading along the brow. The other half bore the black-veined alien pattern, metallic sheen catching the corridor's light, golden iris glowing faintly. He stopped mid-step, eyes locking with his own reflection. For the first time, he didn't look away. There is no disgust in that face now, no disbelief, only the quiet certainty of someone who had seen the truth and stopped pretending it was a lie. His fingers grazed the cool metal, tracing the fracture as if it were the dividing line between two lifetimes. The man in armor glanced back over his shoulder, his voice carrying evenly down the hall. "They'll call you a traitor." Rafe's gaze didn't break from the reflection. "They can call me whatever they want." The hangar opened before them, an immense cathedral of steel and starlight. Beyond the yawning doors stretched the black sea of space, jeweled with distant points of light. Suspended in the void, the alien fleet hovered in perfect formation, their silhouettes sharp against the glow of distant suns. The man in armor stopped at the threshold, his stance unwavering. "This is where I leave you," he said, helmet tucked under one arm. His eyes carried no judgment, only the weight of someone who knew the cost of every decision. Rafe's gaze drifted past him to the ships, not cold, not hostile, but waiting. He could feel their awareness even at this distance, a gravitational pull not on his body but on something deeper. The human voice inside him was faint now, its plea reduced to a whisper. "Don't go." The alien voice answered, calm and absolute, "We're already here." He didn't know which side had spoken it aloud in his mind. Rafe stepped forward, the sound of his boots on steel ringing like the toll of a final bell. The vacuum beyond the hangar doors was silent, but its pull was absolute. As he crossed the threshold, the alien fleet shifted, ships gliding effortlessly into a wide, deliberate arc, creating a path as though a king were being welcomed home. The glow in his veins throbbed in time with the movement of those ships, the rhythm too precise to be coincidence. Behind him, the man in armor turned away without a word, his figure dissolving into the hangar's shadows. Rafe didn't need to look back. His choice wasn't a moment anymore, it was a current, and he was already in it. Ahead, the stars stretched infinite and cold, but he felt no chill. The warmth inside him was enough to drown it out. The alien ships grew larger with each step, their hulls glinting like fragments of constellations come to life. Rafe's breathing was slow, measured, each inhale carrying the taste of metal and inevitability. The human voice inside him was gone now, not defeated but absorbed, its edges dissolving into the vast and patient presence that had been waiting for him all along. He didn't feel fear. He didn't feel triumph. He felt whole. Somewhere far behind, deep in the steel gut of the ship he had left, the intercom crackled to life one last time. The woman's voice came as a ghost over the distance, a whisper so faint it could have been imagined. "You think they'll stop now?" Rafe's lips curved, the smallest shift, but enough to make the gold in his eyes flare brighter. His reply was low, certain, and meant for no one but himself. "No," he murmured. "They're just getting started."